Leap is asking, are these drug laws really about public safety? I went to the Journal of American Medicine, the last such survey that they did of its kind in 2004. I only picked a few graphs. The first one here is tobacco. Tobacco kills almost 400,000 people a year. You look at the second one, it's poor diet and exercise. The third is alcohol. Fourth is motor vehicle. All motor vehicle accidents in the United States account for that many deaths. Use of all illicit drugs combined, 17,000. Marijuana is zero. Zero. So the argument that these drug laws and the $1 trillion would create a drug-free society is because for public safety really doesn't hold water. This chart would indicate from the American Medical Association or the Journal of American Medicine that it's not about public safety. So when they were legal, it was 1.3%. When they were illegal, it was 1.3%. And after a 40-year war and trillions of dollars and millions of people arrested, it's 1.3%. And it's important to understand this slide when you're talking about drug use in the United States or anywhere. There really are three distinct categories. There are users, abusers, and addicts. When you think about drug policy reform, I'd like you to think about alcohol for a moment. Everybody's familiar with alcohol. And as we go through this exercise, you think about somebody you know that uses alcohol. You also then think about somebody who abuses alcohol. You know them. And you've all known somebody who's been addicted to alcohol. And how we respond to that. Alcohol is now called a disease. It is now something that insurance will pay for to get help. But certainly, everybody who uses alcohol is not an addict. What the drug war wants us to understand, us citizens, through law enforcement, what they want us to try and understand is that everybody that uses is an addict. It's not the truth. 114 million Americans have used an illegal substance at some point in their lifetime. 34 million Americans have used an illegal substance in the last 30 days. We have this mammoth correctional system, and there's only 2.3 million people behind bars. So if we're going to arrest our way out of this problem, we would have to extend the number of 2.3 million beds to at least 34 million beds to achieve what our government is telling us we're trying to do. The war won't end. If it goes on its current path, it will never end. The war would be eternal. It needs a paradigm shift. These three categories of consumption are the same for cocaine, it's the same for heroin, and there are stories all across the nation about a high school principal who was a heroin addict for 20 years. Found out only because somebody told on her. It ruined her career. All indications were she was a good teacher and a good principal. Does that mean that using heroin is good? It does not. It's a problem. But in our society, if somebody has a problem with alcohol, you could probably go to your employer and get help. If you're addicted to an illegal substance or even a prescribed substance, you can't get help. You'll ruin your career. So what would we do if we laid off all the law enforcement people, the $88 billion a year budget? What would those officers have to do? Let's take a look at clearance rates in the United States for crime. I've taken this chart and I've bulleted it so that we can see what's unsolved. 40% of the murders in the United States are unsolved. 60% of rapes and arsons are unsolved. 75% of robberies. 46% of assaults. And if you want to be a criminal, the gig to be in is property crimes, because 83% of those are unsolved. I would suggest to you that perhaps we could take law enforcement resources and go after some of these criminals. The many people that I've met in Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, these highly decorated detectives who are now like me, behind a podium trying to talk to the public, trying to talk to politicians about this, they have a lot of stories. And one of the most disturbing stories is every single one of them has a story about corruption. The United States public doesn't know, they're not aware that over 50% of the FBI's caseload is investigating law enforcement corruption. One of the detectives from LEAP that I spoke to said, Rick, you have no idea how difficult it is when you have a child in college. You have bills to pay. You can't keep ahead of those things. And you and your partner, after months and months and months of undercover work, you bust into that house, and on the bed is $4.5 million in cash. And you and your partner look at each other, and you have to process this scene. And nobody else has seen it. He said, Rick, do you have any idea of the temptation? Do you have any idea how easy the corruption can be in a system that's driven like that? And then, every president that has ever seated in Washington has strengthened the drug laws. In 1992, the federal government passed a law that held highway funds from states unless they suspended the driver's license of people who were convicted of a drug-related crime. 27 states have adopted that law. That means that you can rape somebody and keep your license, commit an armed robbery and keep your license. You can commit all kinds of crimes and keep your driver's license, but if you're convicted of a drug crime, you lose your license. Now, if and when you get out of jail and you need to legitimize your life and go to work, how do you get to work? It almost seems like it is a law or a system that seems to be growing to set people up for failure. The Higher Education Act of 1998 means that students who are convicted of a drug-related crime are ineligible for grants, loans, or work assistance to support college. I've had a very personal experience in the last couple of years, and I will tell you that it doesn't even have to be a drug crime, any crime at all. If you want to get into law enforcement, if you want a reputable job, and you have a record, it's not going to happen. Society won't let that happen. People will write laws to make sure that that doesn't happen. So how do you care for your family? How do you feed yourself? Where do you live? And if that happens in college, you have a long life ahead of you.